Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and back in our shop we have Shawn Frayne. Welcome back, CEO of Looking Glass Factory. You have brought some interesting displays, can we call them displays?
Yeah, sure.
And it was only 6 months ago that you came here with your Holo Player 1.
Yeah.
And even before that, in 2016, you guys had a product called Volume. As a company, you've always been chasing the dream of the hologram, putting 3D objects into real space.
Right.
How does this product, and what is this product, and how does it do that?
So this is called the Looking Glass. Thanks for having me back, by the way.
Absolutely.
This is called the Looking Glass, and it's a light field display that combines everything that we learned from the Holo Player 1 interactive light field display with what we made in Volume, which was a volumetric display. And for the display nerds out there, these are usually two completely separate fields of achieving that dream of the non-headgear hologram that can sit on your desk. And Looking Glass combines the virtues of each of those fields into a new system.
Well, let's go back to 2 years ago, to Volume,
Sure.
the volumetric display. That was a closed box device where you had a projector
Yep.
underneath, and it split off into different views so you can see many planes of imagery that combine to look like it's 3D. Is that a fair way
Yeah,
to describe it?
Exactly.
This is not that, because I look at this chunk of plastic and I don't see individual planes. How is this not that?
So the way the Looking Glass works, it may appear like a pure volumetric display or a perfect volumetric display, because whatever lives in the Looking Glass can have full opacity and great depth and so on, but we achieve that effect through 45 different views of a three-dimensional scene that are blasted out into space simultaneously. And it's enclosed in this block so that we can get control of those in this big one, 8 million pixels, and in this standard Looking Glass, 4 million pixels. We can get control over the quality of those pixels to really make the content that lives within this volume feel entirely alive and real.
And so that's why you say this is more akin to the Holo Player 1.
Yeah.
And it being a light field display, it's splitting off views, different angles of the image of a 3D model, as opposed to discrete planes that you can look around.
That's right.
It feels like there are pros and cons of different approaches. I
Yep.
remember Volume was great because I could physically move around the entire thing, wide field of view, but the objects themselves, it was as if you took a 3D shape and sliced it into discrete slices.
And they had sort of that ephemeral, transparent quality to them, which is great for movie holograms, but if you want something to feel entirely real, like an engine block where you're seeing thermal gradients in the engine block, really should look like a real engine block. And volumetric display couldn't achieve that goal, but volumetric display plus light field display could.
Right, right. And then the design of this, so it's not completely see-through.
Yep.
That's how you get some opacity there. Physically, I see this huge block, and behind here, I imagine, is a traditional like LCD display.
Yep.
And then you're rendering something on connected laptops, which
Yep.
you have on the table here. A model on the computer doesn't look like a 3D model. It's sliced up almost like a lenticular flip book if you took off
That's right.
that filter.
Yep.
And this acts as that filter.
Yes, and there's several other filters to clean up the image quality, eliminate ghosting, and give additional depth cues to that content that lives inside. But at its core, that's exactly right. We're taking 45 different views of a virtual scene, whether it's in Unity or Maya or any 3D creation program, and then interlacing those 45 views on a subpixel level, and then piping that through the optics, the LCD with the optical overlays, the lenses, and some filters on top of it, that then resurrects those 45 views in the real world.
How do you end up at 45 views? Is that a rendering limitation? Is that because you wanted this to be a certain depth and size? Is it because you're targeting a certain field of view? How do you end up at that?
All those things.
Okay.
If we just had 10 views or 12 views, you would see breaks in the objectness of whatever's inside the Looking Glass. So there's a threshold that you have to get over within a certain field of view. We wanted to have a wide enough field of view so that groups of a few people, and for the larger system, a dozen people, could gather around and see different truly three-dimensional, stereoscopically three-dimensional vantage points of different parts of the 3D world that lives in the looking glass. And we need to fill enough views within that view cone to make sure there aren't any breaks. When someone glances around a tree that, red panda's in front of, we want to make sure that the tree doesn't rip itself apart.
So one of the cool things about the view cone for this, you say it's 50 degrees
Yep.
or so, is that as I was looking at this, anywhere within that 50 degrees, doesn't matter how far, this didn't seem to be like a
Right.
sweet spot,
No.
a distance. Like it still looks stereoscopic.
Yeah. So for super 3D display nerds that have been tracking non-headgear displays for the last 30 years, there's always been this problem of the sweet spots, like you mentioned, where you have to stand to really get exposed to the 3D content from the displays.
Right.
But since we're spilling out so many views, 10 times what any of the other folks have typically done before, there is no sweet spot.
That's really cool. Now tell me about the manufacture of this piece of plastic,
Yep.
because I imagine that's where a lot of that, all your calculations come together. How is this made?
So it's a lens overlay that's welded on top of the LCD screen in this case. And then this is a block of lucite that has several has a reflective polarizer and other filters on top of it that clean up the pixels. But really it's an even balance between a new piece of hardware and software that can run fast enough so that we can capture those 45 views in all sorts of different 3D creation software at around 60 frames per second. That's what makes the content inside feel alive.
I love you guys are going back to the solid lucite, which is like one of your very first products, right?
We deal with a lot of lucite.
Which was the static image, a photo, right? Just like point clouds inside lucite, except now you have photons in there. That is so cool. Now, if you were to change the design, like you have two different sizes here, but they're the same thickness. If you reconfigured it, could you go thicker? Would that change the properties of the image?
So the large looking glass here is about 3 times the volume of the standard looking glass, and it's a bit thicker. It doesn't scale up 1 to 1 to 1, but there is a scaling that happens in the depth you can achieve. We've been very, very careful at how much depth we push into these systems because we want the eyes to be exposed to enough simultaneous views so that it's very comfortable to view the content inside the looking glass all day long with zero eye fatigue, whether you're a 5-year-old kid or an 80-year-old, grandpa. It doesn't matter. You can look at the stuff inside the looking glass all day long without ever thinking about like, oh, my eyes are starting to get tired. So we intentionally restrict the amount of three-dimensional content, the amount of depth that you can push so that we don't go beyond the bounds of physiological, comfort.
So there are certain types of models and objects that look best in here. Like you have figures, you have landscapes, but it really is optimized for like someone working in a 3D program who wants to see the modeling they've done realized.
Yeah, that's one example, but there's a lot of things that you can create with those different programs, whether it's Maya or Unity. A virtual pet that can live inside, kind of like this guy or this guy here, or volumetric video capture of someone that you care about, or a game that can live inside. So it can't do anything, but the subset of virtual content that can be displayed and come alive in the looking glass is actually quite broad.
You guys are on the display side of things, but you obviously track the content generating side, whether it's resources that people can download models from, but also capture for volumetric capture, light field capture. What's the state of that right now? Is there a repository of cool light field images that people can download and check out? So
for 3D, completely animated 3D creations, whether it's a creature or a character, there are a lot of repositories of that. So Sketchfab, and we have a Sketchfab importer, so a single click, that content can live in the looking glass. There's a lot of stuff that people have made in, let's say, an architecture studio that can live in the looking glass, again, with a single click if they just export it as an OBJ or GLTF or FBX. On the volumetric video capture side of things, right now you have to go to a studio that has an array of DSLR cameras, like from 4D Views or 8i or Mantis Vision, and then you can capture, your kid's first steps inside, and that content can live inside the looking glass. Eventually, everyone will have this capability with phones in their pockets. We actually have an experimental application on the iPhone 10 that with the front-facing camera will let you capture volumetric video, at least from one vantage point that has that kind of Minority Report feel. So people can start to experiment with it. And part of what I believe is that the looking glass will eventually end up being a communication tool and a place where your memories can live once there's enough ways for the average person to collect those memories and that content.
That's so cool. I know you guys had this at this year's Bay Area Maker Fair, just as a little bit teaser.
Always at Maker Fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw lots of kids interacting with it. You have a leap motion integration, and so interactivity is really important to you, it feels like.
So we're peripheral agnostic. So whether it's a leap motion or a RealSense depth camera, Kinect, or even a Joy-Con controller from the Switch, all of those have some support in the SDK, so you can add them on easily to add additional capabilities to the looking glass and the content that lives inside. The Leap Motion offers a special capability of being able to track your hand so that you can interact with the content that lives inside, the characters or the model of a rocket engine, whatever that lives inside the looking glass. Kids are, for some reason, obsessed with this little squishy dancy character application. And I've seen kids that are 5 or 7 play with it for 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I think there's something really powerful about that. And we're starting to talk to schools that already have some curriculum in place that trains kids to create 3D models for 3D printers or for VR headsets. And we've shown them the looking glass, and the kids are getting really excited. They're kids who were in line to play with the squishy dancy character. And
not just kids.
Yeah,
we were
not
we
just
were
kids.
excited.
But I heard one kid say, like, I didn't think the hologram was possible. And I was like, oh, that warms my heart.
Every time you come by our office, it's like you bring a little bit of the future.
Thank you.
Right, and it's so cool to see this in person. You guys are launching this as real products, though. It's not just prototypes. When is this going to come out?
July 24th. So we're launching it on Kickstarter. And it's not to raise funds. We're well funded, and we sell a number of other products in the market now. It's really because on Kickstarter there's this amazing community of 3D creators that have made other dreams, like the dream of VR with the Oculus Rift, or the Formlabs printer, or the occipital structure sensor 3D scanner come to life and become real. And so those 3D creators are exactly who we made the looking glass for, and that's why we're launching it on Kickstarter.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shawn, again, for bringing this in. It's great to see you. It's great to see the next step for your dream of the hologram realized.
Thanks a lot.